welcome our speakers again, Dwight Mihalicz and Reema Nasser. Dwight Mihalicz is the chair of ICMCI. He was the founding chair of ICMC Global Institute, which provides membership and certification services for management consultants in countries where there's no IMCs. Dwight is also the founder and president of Effective Managers, a management consulting firm based in Canada. He's a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Management Consultants, CMC Canada, and a fellow of the Business Excellence Institute. An author of many papers and publications, Dwight has published The Effective CEO, the balancing act that drives sustainable performance book that explore the key functions the CEO must execute to be successful. Our other speaker, Reema Nasser, is the Executive Director of ICMCI, overseeing the Institute strategy, implementation, operation of the Institute, and strengthening relation with its 50+ member institute around the world. Reema joined ICMCI from 7 years with the IMC Jordan, where she was also the Executive Director. Prior to IMC Jordan, Reema was with a local IT company for 15 years. Today, Dwight and Reema will share with us the key development and trend disrupting the management consulting sector and the impact on the management consulting profession. They will highlight the key steps and response from consultants, the game changers, so to speak, and explain the role of ICMCI in advancing the consulting profession. Over to you, Dwight and Reema.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I really appreciate that, and thank you for the honor to address all of the participants that have logged in for this session today. It's been an amazing time for us in management consulting over the last few months. It's been very busy for all of us, and they've been times of uncertainty. So the topic that we have to discuss today is very timely. So today I will lead off and talk with you a bit about the future of management consulting and some of the key factors that are impacting us as management consultants and our work as we go forward. I'll then hand it over to Reema, and Reema will talk about the pathway to the profession. She'll have some very insightful comments for us there. And then at the end, I'll wrap it up with the theme of today's webinar, which is what you need to do now. And of course, that's not very prescriptive because none of us know exactly what the formula is because we don't know what the future is. But I will give you some insights from our perspective in terms of what we need to do to prepare ourselves for an uncertain future. It's my pleasure as chair of ICMCI to join you today. We are a network of management consultants that operate around the world. As you can see here in gold on this map are all of the institutes, including IMC Singapore, that are members of the International Council. And then in the white areas, that is represented by our CMC Global Institute. So we provide management consulting services to every management consultant anywhere in the world. We have a global service that is available to anyone that wants to belong to our network. And it's a great network. It's a very strong network. We have over 64,000 individual consultants and 8,200 certified management consultants. So imagine the power of that network as we join together to collaborate in the type of work that we do. And as you can see on this slide, we have other types of affiliations, including corporate memberships and so on, that enable people to collaborate with us in different ways. So enough about us. I want to talk to you now about the future of consulting. The starting point is the value proposition. The annual spend for consulting globally in the last year, for which we have good solid numbers, 2016, was over US $250 billion. $250 billion US dollars. So it is a significant industry, and it shows by the very virtue of the fact that there's this spend in our industry that it's an important one. Our management consultant clients are receiving services that are of value to them. We're supporting them in learning how to get more services, how to improve themselves, how to be more effective, how to be more professional, and so on. So in terms of what we do with clients, there's no question that consulting is an important sector. Management consulting is one part of the global consulting industry, and on management consulting, which is about 60% of that, the global spend is US billion, $150 billion. I do want to say, though, on that there's an increasing gray area between consulting, which includes IT and finance consulting, and the more specialized service of management consulting, because management consulting does begin to work in those other areas. The question before us then is disruption coming? And the answer to that is a simple one. It has already started. So we are an industry that is in disruption at the present time. And this was before COVID-19. So during COVID-19, we're absolutely been disrupted in terms of how do we support clients that are facing very difficult situations when the future is uncertain. So we have no certainty about when this will end, what the impact will be, and how people, consumers, will react at the end of this. So we've now, in most parts of the world, gone through this phase of the emergency situation, the first reaction, sort of the corporate leaders thinking about how do we protect our people, how do we ensure transparency with customers, how do we stabilize our supply chain, how to ensure that we've got enough cash in the bank that we're going to be able to survive. So this is being followed now by recovery efforts and the return to work, but also periods of uncertainty, because it's not clear about what the workplace will look like as we move forward in the future. Most organizations aren't certain about how to bring people back into the workplace without endangering their people. And there's a lot of uncertainty about how customers will react. Just because we go through all the different phases of recovery and the economy restarts doesn't mean that consumers will react in the same way as before. So there are questions before us in terms of what will the new normal look like, and how significantly will that change over time as well? Because don't forget, before the pandemic, which is a crisis by any name, there were many things that were impacting on us and on our client organizations as we led up to this. There's natural disasters in the world which impact on people's ability to deliver products and services. There have been increasing technological disruptions. So automation and AI and digitization have been on the agenda of major corporations, and this is impacting more and more corporations as we go forward. I think Uber, for example, which is probably the easiest example of a major disruption of an industry because of technology. We were facing a global slowdown, so the economic growth of most major economies was slowing down significantly, and all of those economies have been pushed over the edge as a result of COVID. So the question is, are we coming back as we emerge from COVID into a recession, or will the economy recover more significantly and more quickly than that? And there's been increasing human disruption as a result of these things. And if we think about organizations, if we think about customers, these are all people. And as people are impacted by any of the things above that I've just talked about, this impacts on the way people relate with each other in organizations. It relates to how effective they are inside the organizations, and it reflects on how they will react as consumers. We all know you can turn on the news at any time, and there's increasing trade disruption as well. Just a few years ago, it looked like the world was increasingly moving into free trade and negotiating agreements between various parts of the world and various trading blocks, and then even interrelated trade between those trading blocks. But that has been disrupted, and we're not certain of what the flow of goods and services is going to be looking like in the future. And then, of course, related to the trade disruption is the balance of power, and the way the political atmosphere in the world has been increasingly uncertain. So not to go on at that at length, you're familiar with these things, but the point of all of that is business as usual is not an option for us. So from the client perspective, I'm going to leave that alone now. And what I would like to do is focus in on what that means from the management consulting perspective. This is from research that was done in 2019, and I really appreciated the work of these researchers because they looked at Fortune 1000 companies in Europe. And the Fortune 1000 tends to be a bit of a bellwether. It's an indicator of what might be coming in the future in other parts of the consulting industry. And what we found in that research is that the face of the consulting industry absolutely is changing. And the pandemic has done nothing to slow that down. In fact, it's the opposite. It has increased it. And in talking to the management consulting consumers of services in the Fortune 1000, they had 4 top areas of dissatisfaction. And I think these will resonate with you. The first is that clients were increasingly feeling that consultants don't deliver sustainable results often enough. In other words, they come in, they provide the products or the services that they've been contracted to do, but when they leave, the ongoing sustainability of that change just isn't there. There's a feeling that the consulting partners, so those senior consultants that come into the firm, didn't have the relevant knowledge that was necessary to help them. So what we're finding here, and I'm going to be talking a bit more about this, is that companies are increasingly more knowledgeable about what needs to be done. So they're not feeling that they're getting the value add for the problem solving from the consultants. They felt the prices were a little high, and they felt that there were gaps in the tools and the methodology. And all of these impact on us in different ways. So we need to bear in mind that if we as management consultants who are leading, leaders in the world in terms of helping economies develop, need to have a leadership role in this way, and it impacts on the way that we do our work. So some of those disruptors, what are they? The first one is called augmented intelligence. There's been a lot written about artificial intelligence, and when will artificial intelligence change the way we do business with each other and change the way that we react with each other. Artificial intelligence is a ways down the road, because this is the machine actually learning and being able to create its own programming in order to do better work on our behalf. But augmented intelligence is here. Just pick up and look at this device that we all have very close to us. If I want to learn the best way to get home, I just ask my phone. If I need to phone somebody, I don't have to remember a number. My phone has all of that. If I need to take a picture, it does amazing things in terms of analyzing the light and the background and coming up with a very good picture. So all of these, and if I want to know anything, somebody's birthday, an anniversary, whatever, I just ask my phone, and Google is able to tell me, or whatever service that you use. So this really does create an availability to knowledge, an accessibility to knowledge that changes the way that people think about professions. And that's impacting all of us every day. The example I like to give in this one is think about medical doctors. It wasn't that long ago, if one was feeling ill, you just went to the doctor and then sat down with the doctor, described your symptoms, and the doctor would provide a diagnosis for you. But now, with access to knowledge that we have, it's so much easier for us to be able to understand our bodies and our symptoms and kind of make those internal diagnoses. I don't know about you, but my trip to the doctor tends to be at the end of the phase of analyzing all the symptoms, and I pretty much know what's wrong with my body once I go to the doctor. Of course, there are more complex things where things go wrong and you immediately know that the doctor is needed. But the point of this one is that the same thing is happening with management consultants. Organizations have this accessibility to knowledge. They have very sophisticated internal staff that are able to do a lot of the problem solving. So often they're not coming to us to ask for us to ask the question and solve the problem. They're coming to us to help them with the implementation. Doesn't mean they've got the right diagnosis, which makes our job as management consultants even a bit harder. In the same way as I might go into the doctor and say, this is what I think I have, and the doctor says, no, it's not. You need to be thinking about these things. In the same way as we, as consultants, we need to have that insight as well for our clients. The other thing that's changing the way the management consulting profession collaborates is this ability to network. It used to be that if you wanted to be a management consultant, you would join your institute, because that was how you could be in touch with colleague management consultants. New management consultants coming into the field don't feel that pressure to become part of the institute. Rather, they have the ability to collaborate with peers through social media around the world. So it just makes this accessibility to others different. And we need to think about this as management consultants. And then there's the Uber-ization of consulting, as I like to think about it. We know what Uber did to taxis. We know what Airbnb is doing to the rental market. Similar kinds of things are happening in the consulting industry. And there's two parts to this. One is that it's not clearly understood what a professional consultant is versus what a consultant is. Reema is going to be talking about that. But the second is, when someone wants expert advice from wherever, you can go to this area, go load Google or load another search engine, type in find a consultant. And as you'll see in this search that I did just a couple of days ago when I prepared these slides, in just over half a second, I have 611 million results. So this availability to, quotation marks, consulting, whatever that might mean from the client or from the potential client's perspective, is immense. So I thought, well, what about management consulting? Let's try and narrow this down a bit. So I typed in find a management consultant. And lo and behold, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. In 0.69 seconds, just under 7/10 of a second, 716 million results. So how do we help clients understand what is the profession of management consulting? This is a major disruptor to us and to our industry. The other point I wanted to make just before I hand it over to Reema is that there's also an increasing trend for organizations to insource professionals, and management consulting is coming there. Accounting was probably one of the first ones where organizations used to go outside for their accounting services, and then they started building internal accounting departments, which is kind of the standard nowadays. Audits, the same thing. It used to go outside always for the audit function, but now you have internal audit functions to do a lot of the auditing inside to prepare for that external audit function, which is still important. Lawyers used to be always hired. You go to the law firm to get the legal advice, and now corporations are starting to bring lawyers inside. And more I'm running into situations where organizations have an internal consulting department. I was making a presentation at IMC USA. I know some colleagues from the United States are on at their conference, and at the end of it, a consultant, a CMC from one of the major pharmaceuticals came up to talk to me, and I was really interested to collaborate with him, and then found out that that he was actually an internal consultant, which was fascinating. So full-time consultant, CMC, working inside the organization. So all of these things are disruptors. There's no question about that, but the independent consultant and small to medium-sized consulting firms can leverage these opportunities. But for us to be able to do this, we need to be able to collaborate. We need to be able to figure out how to build those linkages amongst each other so that we can learn from each other, build on each other's successes, build projects together, and deliver successful projects in a collaborative way. So, so with laying that groundwork, I would like now to hand it over to Reema, who will give us some insights into the pathway to the profession. I'll just turn my video off to get out of your way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Lim, and thank you, Lydia, for this opportunity, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Dwight just made it all look like this picture. It's full of thorns. The goal is way ahead, and it doesn't even look that clear. It's a pathway that you need to mark for your journey. That is what consultants need to do. They need to mark their pathway. They need to get the support from somewhere to be able to do that. And that is what ICMCI tries to do. Sorry, I'm going to talk about ICMCI here, but I need to make it kind of clear that you have opportunities, you have support, and many of you are CMCs, so you would know where I'm coming from. Now, ICMCI's vision is about being the leader in the development of management consulting. And that is based on enhancing the consultants themselves. That is based on making sure that they are well prepared in order to reach the social and economic success that we all thrive for at ICMCI, at the IMCs, and even at the level of the consultants themselves. Now, again, we decided in our vision to talk about the development of management consulting. And one of the main anchors of the profession itself are the consultants. So this leads us to start talking about what is a consultant. And maybe that will take us further into talking what is a good consultant. So in the next slide, we have a very general definition. Dwight, if you may move ahead, please. And it's a very general one because it talks about experienced professionals who provide expert knowledge. Well, like Dwight said, this could be a doctor providing professional advice to an ill person. It could be an engineer providing advice while building a bridge. It could be a lawyer providing advice. So we had to take it from this general type of definition into actual definition that would address what a management consultant is. And when you look at it, you would start to see that it has words that I've highlighted in bold for you. Those definitions come from ICMCI because it is the leader in this profession, and it comes from our standard, which is the ISO 20700:2017. Now, in both, if you look at them, a consultant helps organizations to solve issues, to actually find out which are the important issues that needs to be dealt with. It talks about creating value, growth, enhancing productivity. It talks about the impact on the world economy. It talks about the expertise and skills. So this defines exactly what a management consultant should be like. And this is exactly what you should do. This is what you need to follow in order to make sure that you're a good consultant. To the next slide, please, Dwight. Simply because a consultant would have, you moved ahead way too far, but that's fine. Because a consultant should have an impact. And having an impact is all about making sure that what you do is right. Now, again, if I look at all those sentences and try and find out what they actually mean. A consultant helps organizations to solve issues. Fine. Dwight just told us that there are many internal consultants that might do that internally for a company. But as a consultant who's looking at things from the outside, you would need to use your good analytical skills in order to make sure that those issues that they are saying are impacting them are the actual ones, and there are no hidden ones. So good analytical skills is a very major, important aspect of what a consultant should have, because that's when they would deal with the important issues. And by dealing with the important issues, you're showing your client that you have insight, because you're not looking at it from the internal aspect, you're looking at it from a general manner. You're looking at the full picture, and you know what the future might hold. Because of the analytical skills and the insight, you would be able to support clients in different sectors, because the knowledge is there. Again, like Dwight told us, you would need to work on your techniques. You would need to work by being innovative, because whether specialized or generalist, you would be able to actually look at the full picture. Once you do that, you would be able to maximize the growth and improve the performance. That's where productivity enhancement comes, because from everything that I said and what Dwight said before, Dwight was looking at it from the aspect of the consultant. What I'm trying to do here is tell you that you're a good consultant when you put the client as your priority. I'm sorry to say, it's not about us now. It's about our clients. The problems that we're having are multiplied at the clients because we actually have the skills to analyze, have insight into what the future could bring. We have more knowledge because this is our business. We do have the techniques, but the client may lack some of those. So having the client as the priority, and again, from the definitions that you saw, from the ISO standard, from the CMC, whenever we look at a consultant, we actually get the input of the client in order to make sure that, yes, you are doing a good job. Yes, you are doing proper support for reaching the proper end. You need to create value. That is what it's all about. It is about creating value by providing the objective advice. And that is something that some of the internal consultants may not have, or may not have the privilege of, because they work in that company, and an external consultant would even add to it. Plus, the fact that you work according to a code of conduct. All of those other consultants would have cards saying that they are consultants, but would they have the code of conduct to support them? Would they have the competence? So looking at it from the perspective of the client, this is what you would need to do. This is what you need to continue doing in those times, especially because following it and making sure that your clients understand that you are there for them, that is what needs to be done now. Just like what ICMCI did. You are our clients, right? The IMCs and the CMCs. And what we did since COVID started is try to provide you with knowledge, provide you with insights, assist you in the analytical skills that you have. That's what we try to do. And the question is, what have you tried to do to your client? Because that is exactly what your client is expecting of you. Some of them may be unable, even with all of that information available, are unable to look at it from a different perspective and actually defining what their problem is. And that takes us to the next slide, because when we're talking about all of this and we're talking about creating value, then we're talking about the huge impact that management consulting has on this profession. That has on the economy through the profession growing and developing. Now, what I talked about is a consultant that has all of those capabilities. Now, using a good consultant or the right consultant would have a positive impact. And that's the next slide, right? The wrong consultant can have a negative impact. And that is maybe what Dwight was talking about with the study that was done, and he talked to us about the dissatisfactions that people expressed about our profession. I believe that is where the wrong consultant came in. They built that portfolio for us. They made everyone perceive that that is what management consulting is. While we know that we have a positive impact, we know that we have sustainable results, we know that we have our client as our priority. Now, again, talking about who is a consultant, and that is the next slide. Just to summarize it all and talk about all of those aspects that I already kind of put on the floor for you. A management consultant is a high competence person, someone who builds partnerships, because when you look at it, clients are either large entities or small to medium or even startups. So you need to build proper partnerships with your client. You need to have them trust you. You need to provide them with mentoring, because even if you provide what the solution is, they may not be able to implement. Implementation is the most important part, and you would implement by providing the mentoring all through. Focus on the client, achieve results, make sure that they perceive you as a trustworthy person, and make sure you follow the code of ethics in order to make sure that that is apparent every step of the way. And that's when you can call yourself as a consultant a game changer. And that's why at ICMCI we believe our CMCs are game changers, because they are all of those. They are competent, they have the experience, they have the expertise, they have the ethics, they have everything that actually makes them game changers. And when someone says, I'm a consultant, well, I believe all they have is knowledge. And that's why I love the next slide, because it exactly talks about who the right consultant is. And this is something that most of you as CMCs may have seen before a lot. Expertise, experience, capabilities, ethics, and lifelong professional development is what the CMC adds. When you need to differentiate yourself now, in the future, and this is what you've done before, but mainly now during what we're going through, you need to be a game changer. You need to focus on your client. You need to have the expertise, the experience, the capabilities, and mainly the ethics. This is what ICMCI is all about. Now, I've read everywhere that people don't need to be a part of any entity. They can be just online and provide the information and advertise themselves. Like Dwight said, social media is doing that for people now. But what gives the authentication? The authentication comes from actually being ethical, following codes of ethics, having the capabilities, the lifelong professional development, making sure that your clients understand it, see it, and actually feel it. Feel it with the impact, feel it with the lifelong professional, not development, but partnership as well. Okay, and to us, that is the right consultant. That is the consultant that would actually make an impact and make a positive impact. Again, like I said, the first photo I showed had lots of thorns. You would need to decide your pathway, but do remember, the pathway, even if it's hard and long and unpaved, but making sure that you actually stay on top of everything that is happening around you, using your skills, making sure that you have the professional development all through, then you would actually be on the right path and you would have marked your pathway by becoming a CMC. I'm not trying to promote the CMC. I'm trying to tell you all that the way is there and the right consultant is there. And it's time we let our clients understand that the right consultant is someone who would be able to deliver all this. But for you as consultants, and that's the next slide, Dwight, it's something that Dwight already talked about, and it's the collaboration with peers. Now, I know that social media has that, LinkedIn does, and it actually guides you to the groups that you should join and whatever. But are they like you? Or are they consultants that just printed out a card saying they are consultants? For you to make sure that you're actually collaborating with peers and in the very detailed essence of what peers mean. Peers that think alike, that act alike, that has the consultant hat on all through and has the client as the priority. And one of the main things that you would also benefit from is learning from good examples. Always remember, lifelong development, professional development isn't just about reading, isn't just about keeping up with the news around you. It's about learning from good examples. Someone today may have helped a small enterprise come out of all the hardships and might have talked about it either on social media or at ICMCI or on our website or in one of our webinars all over the IMCs around the world, that would have just gave you the insight on what it is that you would need to do with a case, with a client that you have between your hands. So collaboration and learning from good examples is one of the main things, and making sure that it is with peers. It is with colleagues that have the same way of thinking, colleagues that actually come with the same package, which is experience, expertise, competence, and ethics. So keep it up. That's what I'm trying to say. The right consultant, and again, Dwight, it's the next slide. The right consultant should network. Now, I know that events are not something that happen a lot in a face-to-face manner, but there are lots of webinars out there. Make yourself available, network with people, get to know consultants who are your peers. The same definition that I just talked of, peers who think alike and come with the same package. There are many opportunities for you to promote your achievements and best practices. Social media could be one. The ICMCI could be another. Promote your achievements. Do not continue talking about you. Start talking about your clients, what you did that was beneficial and impactful to a client. Let clients read that. Let them know that you have the client as a focus. Opportunities to enhance the profession, and that is something that we're taking a lead on, and I believe all in our network have already known about our National Consulting Index. It is something that we're trying to put together in order to help each member country look into what the National Consulting Index is now, how it could be improved, what needs to be done at the country level in order to improve it, and that would create an even better environment for you to practice the profession that you choose for yourself. Again, be visible. Now, ICMCI has its CMC directory, but visibility doesn't stop there. You also have your LinkedIn, you also have your Facebook, you have all the social media channels that are out there for everyone. But when you make yourself visible, please do remember, in order to differentiate yourself from all those others who have a card, you need to talk about the best practices. You need to talk about enhancing the profession. You need to focus on your client to make them see what the difference is between you and any other consultant. The continued education and the professional development is something that we already talked of in the previous slide. But also remember, this is the same thing that ICMCI does. It has the CMC that has to be renewed every 3 years, for example. With the ISO standard, it is all about involving the client. And it's not just continuing your education, but also continuing the education of your client. You cannot be a consultant without a client. It doesn't happen. So actually, for you to be a consultant, you need to focus on the client. And with the reciprocity that ICMCI offers. Again, I know on social media, you can say that you're a consultant and someone might approach you. Fine. But does that prove that you're a good consultant? The reciprocity aspect at ICMCI makes sure that any consultant who is a CMC or a member of an IMC all over the world means the same. You're all the same caliber. You all have the same package that you carry to your client. And again, everything is going digital. So networking, and with this reciprocity aspect, you can get an assignment anywhere around the world. So make sure that your peers see you. Make sure they know of your best practices so that when they do need support, even if in another country, they would look for you. What's going to happen now is that many businesses are being done online, and this might be the future of management consulting. Actually, most of the work that you would do from now on would be online. It is all digital. So be there, show your best practice, confirm it with your code of conduct and code of ethics, make your peers see you, and remember you have the reciprocity within ICMCI. So that is the right consultant to us. And if you want to know more, if you're not already a member of our network or of any of our IMCs, please do go to our website. You would learn more about the opportunities, but do make sure to act as the consultant. Make sure to continue focusing on the client, and please do make sure that you keep developing your competence in order to address everything that's going to come up in the future. Because even if something is happening today, the impact could be 2 months from now. And actually us as consultants, as management consultants, should analyze, reach conclusions, provide advice according to the best of our knowledge, because this is what this phase is actually having us all act in this way. It's not about us reacting anymore. We actually need to act, and acting is something that would need all of your capabilities properly lined up for you to be able to support your clients the best. I've said my piece, Dwight. I hope that it was of benefit. I hope that you were able to see the vision of what ICMCI is and what actually our vision of a good consultant is and what the pathway could be. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Dwight, back to you.
Thank you, Reema. That was excellent. So it's back to me for the home stretch, and what I'd like to do now is talk to you about what you need to do now. And again, this can't be a formula. I wish it could be. If only we could publish a cookbook type of a resource, that would be great. But I would like to give you some insights. There's two things I'd like to give you information on before we do that. The first is that consulting has been in a constant state of change since it was first founded a bit over, I guess, about 140 years ago now. So management consulting is a relatively young profession. And in many ways, we've not developed ourselves completely as a profession, not in the way medical doctors or lawyers or accountants are, for example. Now, what we've done at ICMCI and with the competency framework and our code of ethics, I mean, these are all the hallmarks of management consulting as a profession. What we've not been able to do as well as we could yet is bring in all those who believe that they are doing consulting work into our management consulting profession. I like to think of it as our management consulting family. So I just wanted to show you this slide, which is from 1982, which is published in Harvard Business Review, and it talked about the 8 different types of consulting. And if you look at that, it still makes a little bit of sense, but over the last couple of decades, it's focused more into what we'd call a dichotomy of consulting. So at the very high end, you had the strategy consultants who would come in and develop and support organizations doing their strategy. And then in a more commoditized type of way, you'd have consultants come in to help with the implementation of major projects. The big firms would send in a huge team of people. Independents might come in to help with a smaller project to particularly do that bit of work. But what we're finding now is that there's this third category emerging, which is more defining about what consulting really is. And it's where it's a kind of a symbiotic relationship between the client and the consultant, where the client comes in, works along with the, the consultant comes in and works along with the client to identify the problem, make sure that the right problem was identified, help them solve that problem, and then come up with them, bringing our own knowledge, our skills, our expertise, our previous experience to develop a solution and work alongside them to implement that solution, helping the internal team learn about that so that over time, the organization is able to and fully capable of benefiting from those changes and able to sustain those changes over a longer period of time. So this is something I talked earlier about the benefits for the ability of small and individual practitioners, small and medium-sized firms being able to benefit from these things. This is exactly the type of work that we do and that we're known for. And it resonates very well with everything that Reema was saying about how we provide value-added services to clients. And I want to underline the point Reema made about objectivity. This is the big difference between an internal consultant and an external consultant that is coming in, is that internal that objectivity, that external viewpoint that's can be very helpful because it brings fresh eyes to individuals inside the organization who see things in a different way. I remember one of the first major consulting projects I did when I was the internal project person, and how amazed I was that this objectivity could give you new insights into the way that we were thinking about things. So the role of consulting is getting stronger, I believe. It's just being different. That was one point I wanted to make. The second point I want to make for you is just the nature of consulting in terms of our client base. So the top 10 firms in the globe account for over half of the global consulting spend. On this slide, you can see it's 52%. And if you look at the numbers more closely, I can look on this screen. The top 200 provide 79% of the services around the world. So the management consulting services generally are very, very focused by the high end. So another fact for you is that 78% of the consulting spend is in Europe and North America. So this shows that there's a large concentration in a relatively small number of firms in a relatively small part of our global economy. So the point I want to make on this is that there's huge untapped potential, because recent research in Austria, which I found immensely, this was our institute in Austria, engaged Gallup to do this research. And what they did is they asked small and medium-sized enterprises throughout Austria whether they would consider using consulting services in the next year. And the answer was that, as you can see in this slide, 78% said we have no need. And another, the orange part, 17% said, well, maybe we might have a modest need. Now, to me, this is not that they don't need services or may have a modest need for services. It's that they don't recognize the value that management consulting support can provide to an organization. And the small and medium-sized enterprises are the largest part of the drivers of economies around the world. And yet somehow as consultants, we seem to want to be focusing in on the Fortune 1000 companies that have big budgets for consulting. So how do we, as management consultants, adapt our services, figure out how it is that we can support all client organizations in ways that they will see the value-added proposition for them to work with consultants. So there's huge opportunity out there, not only in the large firms, there's opportunity in the large firms, but in all size of firms across the organization. So we're coming close to the time that we have set out. So what I want to do in the next time is just talk about a few of the insights in terms of how we as consultants can prepare for the future. The first one is acknowledging that this pace of change is faster and the size of disruption is larger than we have ever seen before, and we can expect it to change, to continue to change in the way that it has in the past. It may not be a global pandemic, I hope not, where everyone in the world is impacted in a negative way at the same time. But if we think about industry by industry, country by country, sector by sector, disruption is coming, and it's going to be a major force of disruption as we move forward. So we need to learn to live in this state of change, and we need to figure out how to keep in touch with our colleagues. Reema made this point so wonderfully, that if we can collaborate, if we can learn from each other, if we can reach out and share with each other, learn from best practices, this is the way that we're going to be able to keep ahead of the crest, because all of us are learning from our interactions with clients, and it's only by sharing that information that we will be able to continue to maintain that pace of change. The second point is that we must lead in digitization and virtualization. Management consulting firms generally haven't been the leaders of the pack in terms of digitizing products and services. We as management consultants really need to figure this out. How do we automate our some of aspects of our products and services so that we can make them cheaper and more affordable for our client organizations, which also makes them more accessible to the SMEs so we can broaden our client base? How do we virtualize our services so that we don't need to travel and work inside client organizations to provide the same value of services to them that we could otherwise? This also broadens our reach, because if we have a virtualized service, no longer are we tied to the areas that we can travel to, no longer are we tied to airlines. We can provide those services everywhere in the world where people need those. So by us taking the lead and learning for ourselves in doing this in our own organizations, we are then learn how to better support clients, and we're able to demonstrate success by leading with our own firm. So there's no question that we need to focus in on this. We need to learn from each other, and we need to share with each other. We need to recognize that the future is uncertain and that there will be no easy answers. It's awkward when you're going into your client organization, as we have over the last few months, and they're wondering how they're going to survive the next month or two and how long this disruption is going to last, and we don't know the answers to those. But we do have our experience in knowing that this will end. We do have our experience in knowing what organizations need to do to be as effective as possible. We know how to analyze and help point them at what some of the root cause issues are inside their organizations that are leading to ineffectiveness, so that they can, as they need to draw back and kind of reorganize themselves or reset themselves in preparation for this, that they can be as strong and able and resilient and adaptable as possible moving forward. So it's partly leaning on our knowledge, but it's partly the old-fashioned process consulting of working the internal teams through the process of figuring out what the options are, what are the different scenarios that are coming, what are the best case solutions for each one of those different scenarios, and then as time goes on and as things get clearer, we're able to narrow our focus to help them be ready to react as necessary. Reema made a big point about collaborate, and if there's anything I've learned in my career as a management consultant, and I've been fortunate enough to be a volunteer in ICMCI, is to recognize the huge potential from collaboration, from sharing with each other's and learning with each other's. And the big lesson that I have in this is that you need to give before you can get. So always enter into that collaboration with the perspective of how can I help one of my colleagues to be better? And believe me, that comes back many times over in terms of learning how you can do better in the organization. So this need for institutes is greater than ever. It gives us this baseline of credibility that we are part of the management consulting profession. We didn't just print the business card. No, in fact, we have a process that we've gone through. We know what it is to be a professional management consultant. We know how one delivers services and products in the most appropriate way inside the organization, and we're able to do that. And there's the need for our global federation of ICMCI. We are a network of member organizations. Each are working to support management consultants in their country, and we, as that global organization, build the linkages between the institutes. In this time of COVID, we've had the weekly online seminar and webinar experiences, and this has given us direct contact with CMCs, where CMCs from around the world are able to collaborate with each other and learn from each other. So it's a huge opportunity for us to build on this and to grow our institutes and to grow our international organizations, so that we're bringing more of the new entrants of management consultants into our global family of this profession, so that we can be stronger as we go forward. So those are the main points I wanted. I see that there have been questions coming in both in the question boxes and in the chat. So I'll hand it back to Lim Fu for moderating the question and answer session. I would like to thank you very much for your attention and for this opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you, Dwight, Reema, for a very engaging and insightful presentation. We now come to the Q&A session. So you have any questions that you'd like to pose, please drop it onto the Q&A box at the screen below. And we already have a few questions. Let me address some of them now. First, I think there are a few questions that relate to digitalization and virtualization. Right, I think you mentioned about consulting need to embrace digitalization. I think at the same time, I think there are some concern about whether digitalization will replace some of the the work of the consultant. In fact, there are two questions. One from Lo Un Hen, who's from Singapore, is an ICF member. Here he asks, since information and knowledge so readily available now, is providing insight and ability to integrate information and insight from different disciplines a lot more important now? And related to that, same question from Mr. Low. With more digitalization, will consultancy become a commoditized product and service?
So let me jump in on that one. There's a source.com is an organization that measures management consulting expertise and does a lot of really good work in analyzing the state of consulting. And they published a study that said 27% of consultants would be replaced by automation. And I personally take issue with that kind of a conclusion. The way I would read that data, I would say that 27% of the services of management consultants could be automated. And that's a different thing. So in the end, it may mean a lower workforce, but it doesn't mean that that 27% of the work that we're doing, all of a sudden we can have a machine that can be fired up and do our work inside an organization. The important distinction here is this diagnostic capability, and you referred to it, Lim Fu, the diagnostic capability of the consultant to be able to take the information from all kinds of sources inside the organization, our past experiences and best practices around the world, and use that to make a diagnosis about what is the root cause issue that the organization is facing, and how do we help them overcome that so that they can be more effective, and more so that it won't reoccur, so that they will be able to just move on and be able to sustain that change over time. So the role of the consultant is here to stay, and it's a very important one. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't 27% of our services that we could automate. So instead of working in the back office, developing the report in the same way that we always have, or to doing surveys, in my own case, surveys that used to be quite labor intensive. How do we digitize that kind of thing so we make it easier to deliver, cheaper, faster to deliver, and more accessible to others? So I think there is huge potential within us, not to replace the core of what a consultant does, but to help us be more effective ourselves in the way we develop and deliver our services to clients.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have another question that relates to collaboration, which is a common theme in your presentation. I think the question here from Sunil Abro, that can ICMCI, or for that matter, IMCs of each country, become an aggregator of consulting expertise? To talk about how can you bring our consulting expertise together and hunt at the pack, so to speak.
Reema, maybe I'll let you take the lead on that one.
Thank you for the question. And actually, we're trying to do that with one of our products. Now, I'm not supposed to talk a lot about our products, but the CMC directory is trying to do that. What we're trying to do is have consultants from all over the IMCs register into that and actually highlight the main aspects that they feel are their best expertise, in order to make sure that we highlight those. And for anyone seeking, whether a client or another consultant seeking collaboration, if they're looking into that specific subject matter type of expertise, they would be able to find it. So we're trying to do that. It would be a long way, but we've started it, and we hope that we might end up being able to do exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, coming to the next question from Lydia Go. Do you see the geopolitical events and the pandemic crisis as new challenges impacting cross-border collaboration, cooperation, opportunity, and growth for the consulting industry? So,
I'll start, and Reema may want to add to that. It's Winston Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. And I think that's exactly the situation that we're in. This has been a crisis situation for us. I know in my own consulting practice, to move to the virtualization of my products and services, it was a big priority over the last few months. And I know many of my colleagues have been doing that. And it's going to take a while for client organizations to move from the headspace of how do I survive this crisis to how do I now prepare myself to be as effective and profitable as possible going forward. So at that time, they will start reaching out again. We know these things end. They always have and will at some point. So we as consultants need to be out there. I'm doing more pro bono and outreach work than I ever have, just in terms of keeping in touch with my clients, knowing that they will need these services and to be ready with this virtual offering. So I say that to answer Lydia's question directly, that this virtual offering, which applies to my consultants in my own region, now make it much more easy and accessible to clients in any other part of the world. And my own business model has been around working with partner firms in other parts of the world. So this newfound respect and willingness to accept virtual services means that we as consultants have a much larger reach than we ever did before. And I think it's an opportunity. Yes, it's born of crisis, but it is an opportunity for us in our practices moving forward.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take two more questions. Okay, just one question from Eric Singyanger. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Is it likely, though, that internal consultants will also pursue becoming CMC themselves? I mean, the question is whether internal consultant can become certified as CMCs. Maybe.
Yes, yes, it could be because when the CMC started all those years ago, actually it wasn't. And through the years, and I believe that Dwight tapped on it in his presentation, internal consultants are becoming more and more involved, even though within their companies, but they're trying to become more involved in a manner where they give the subject matter expertise, but at the same time, they keep themselves a bit afar and do offer advice that is not just for the interest of the company. So we amended our competency framework. We amended the CMC scheme, and actually now internal consultants, and that's what we call them, internal consultants do have the capability to become CMCs.
Thank you, Reema. Okay, maybe we have one last question. There's one question again from Mr. Low on hand. The question about, I think it's about relating to the one slide on dichotomy. The question is, should an effective consultant have adequate line experience, given that client may want consultant to be more involved in implementation? So
that's a great question, and there's always a balance, as there is in all aspects of life in these things. So it depends a bit on what the project is. So if it's putting in new equipment to create a more effective line, for sure you would want a consultant that knows how the equipment works, so that you can be supportive to the client. But in my experience in working with client organizations, there's a big difference between the how and the what. And I think there's huge power in the combination of the external and the internal team. So as a management consultant, I'm bringing the external experience, expertise, methods, approaches, understanding human dynamics and the change process. And the internal team knows the people, and they know the processes, and they know the products. So by having an internal external team, I don't need to be so knowledgeable about the exact process that's being involved, because the internal people know that very, very well. But I can help them understand accountability and authority and the process management and all of the things that need to be in place for that to be implemented successfully. So I don't think it's essential. There's some times when more knowledge is better, but I think management consultants are working at a high enough order of supporting the organization that the processes and the content that they bring is sufficient at that higher level.
Thank you.
Reema has something to add to that.
I have one more question. I think the one request from the leader, they want this question to be answered. This question.
But there's one thing I need to comment on, if I may. With regards to the previous questions, there was a note from Sunil saying, Reema directory does not lead to aggregation. Aggregation would be pooling expertise to meet a project requirement. That is exactly why we're doing the directory, in order to collect the data. So I said it's a long way and we're on the first step, but that is how we see it in order to actually get the data, know what the expertise are among the different CMCs, and then start promoting to clients and actually promoting it in a manner where we're talking about the expertise. And after that comes the stage where we start the pooling that you talked about. So we are on the first step, but that is our way of collecting the data. I'm so sorry, Lim, I had to address that as well. I'm sorry, back to you.
Okay, it's okay. I think the directory is a very good initiative here of ICMCI. We have also a directory on our website. So that's a great initiative. Okay, I need to pose one last question. This is a special request. It's from PK Lim, who's our council member. The question here is, do you see trends of company maintaining lean core functional management team structure? The need to engage consultants to support and implement more challenging projects when needed. How could ICMCI influence this? So the question is, now companies are getting leaner and smaller, and then probably see the need to engage consultants. So how can ICMCI or maybe the IMCs can influence this?
I'll answer the first part of that, and I really appreciate Reema's insight as well on the ICMCI influence part. So leave it to my friend PK Lim to ask the hardest question and leave it for the end. But it's only hard in one way. So it's hard because this is part of the development of the way organizations operate. So it's unclear exactly how this will evolve in the future. There are aspects of lean and all different kinds of effectiveness and efficiency systems that are really, really important. The biggest issue in organizations is that they tend to focus in on the process level. So it's entry level and maybe first level manager work. And it doesn't take into account, to the degree that's really necessary, the accountability and authority that's required for success in lean. So I mean, all of these processes have real benefits. They involve and engage employees in a better way. They provide information in a good way, and they help teams to be more effective in terms of doing their work. But none of that can happen in isolation of the strategy of the organization, of the complexity that's being faced in terms of our customers and our other stakeholders inside the environment in the community. So we as management consultants really need to bring an understanding of how systems, an organization as a system, work, so that any of these initiatives, whether it be lean or something else, are operating in a whole system that is operating in a consistent way to develop products and services as effectively and efficiently as possible, and meeting the needs of your target markets as well as possible. So none of these are standalone systems. They all have to work under the direction of the owner or the CEO, and they all need to be consistent with the overall approach. So we as management consultants can bring in this viewpoint, and too often all of the focus is in on that system, and when it starts to fail, they throw up their hands, and it's one of the 70% of projects that failed to deliver results, when in fact, had they looked at some of the higher order things which we can help them with, they could have been successful. I hope that answers your question, PK. And in terms of the ICMCI influence, I leave that part to you to add on to, Reema.
Well, I'm not sure if what I'm going to say actually addresses it, but remember I talked about the education, and it's not just the lifelong education of the consultants, but it's also about the lifelong education of clients. So maybe that's what the role of ICMCI could be. I mean, what we're trying to do, as I said, with the CMC, we actually get client feedback for us to assess if a person is eligible to become a CMC. With the ISO, it's direct involvement of the client in order to understand what it's all about. So what we're trying to do is actually, other than assist and support and develop the consultants, what we're trying to do is bring in clients more and more. So when that happens, and when it is continued type of education, maybe that is the role of ICMCI, right? Back to you.
It comes down to that. It's this collaboration, and as knowledge becomes more available, as there's more and more internal consultants, the simpler, more straightforward programs do get become insourced, if you will. But the management consultant can still bring this diagnosis, the higher order learning and problem solving that's necessary, and to help the owner or the CEO put the right framework and the right systems in place to make sure that the new project, the new process, whatever it is, can work as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Thank you, Dwight and Reema. That's our final question for the session. And thank you for your participation, and big thank you to Dwight and Reema for their time and valuable sharing today. We hope that you have enjoyed and benefited a lot from the webinar. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you again in our future events. Bye for now, and stay safe and well. So if anyone has a copy of the slide, just go back and check our website at imci.sg. We will upload the website on our website, and a copy of this webinar will also be uploaded. Okay, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Lydia.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dwight and Reema, for your valuable time. And also, thank you for an enlightening, enriching, and illumination session. And also thank you to everyone for your time and presence here this evening. It is greatly appreciated. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.